Today we have Sam Hack, who at just 27 years old is a co-owner of a Berkshire Hathaway franchise and a little bit of a social media influencer, showing off the beautiful luxury real estate that you're selling in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. You have a lot of people really interested in your journey, your story.
The biggest solo commission check I've ever earned was $97,000. It's the cheapest thing on the market, $250,000 condo. The property value went from $250 to $500 in like a year and a half.
Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for the generous intro, Vince. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm really excited to dig into your story. So let's talk about how a broke college kid refused to walk at his college graduation.
Totally. I think you hear this more and more now, but I was kind of on the cusp of the first generation going through college, realizing that it wasn't all that it's cracked up to be. And I wasn't learning as much in the classroom as I was in the fraternity house, in the social scene, and everything else that goes along with college. So, I got into real estate because of managing my fraternity house as the house manager and leasing to all the degenerate frat boys in there and chasing them down for rent and calling their parents when they broke stuff. So and I was kind of the enforcer. And so it was, college was my start, and got into property management and then brokerage after that.
So this hasn't been revealed on the podcast until this episode, but I actually was in a fraternity in college as well.
Which one were you in?
I was in ATO. What one were you in?
Beta Theta Pi.
Okay. We didn't have that at NC State. And where did you go for undergrad, and what did you major in?
I went to UW-Madison in Madison, Wisconsin. I majored in economics and political science after dropping out of engineering.
I actually majored in poli-sci as well. So we have way more in common than we would have ever realized just off the bat.
Yeah, and do you remember everything from poli-sci at NC State?
So interestingly enough, when I was majoring in it, and at that time, I thought it was probably useless. I just enjoyed writing essays and I was really good at it. I just tended to do well in humanities topics. And ironically, I'm not going to dive into many details, but as we've seen the landscape change a lot in America over the last 5 or 6 years, it's actually come in really helpful because I have a very deep understanding of everything that's happening. So I have a lot of perspective on it, but this is not the podcast where I will share those sorts of things. But it is interesting because I do feel like now all of that old knowledge is coming back to me, and I probably know too much. Did you feel like it was similar for you, or gave you any sort of perspective?
It really does. It gives you like a lens in which to view the world and the right kind of angles to be objective about politics. But also in real estate, we interface with politics every single day, whether it's local county commissions or zoning and even statewide regulations, affordable housing. Everyone interfaces with government. So it's good to have that background.
It is. It's really interesting. And I don't think I've interviewed someone else yet who also majored in poli-sci. So it is funny that we have those things in common off the bat. Are you from Wisconsin originally? And how did you end up in Wyoming?
I'm not from Wisconsin. I just went to college there, but we kind of moved around a bunch growing up. My dad just kept taking better and better jobs. And he moved us from Connecticut, where I was born, to upstate New York, to Minnesota, to back to New York, boarding school in Connecticut, Wisconsin for college, and I ended up in Wyoming, and now I call Wyoming home because I've been here longer than anywhere else I've been in my life. A friend's older brother from boarding school had worked a job in Jackson at a bank. One of my majors was economics, and so he said, you might be a good fit for this. Let me write you a letter of recommendation. I went through with that, ended up at the bank with loafers on and wearing a button-down shirt every single day in beautiful Jackson Hole. And I was getting out of work by the time it was dark, and I just decided, I got to do something different. And that's what made me end up in property management and real estate. I could be outside every day. And I kind of fell into this whole career path, but it's worked out really, really well. That
does happen for a lot of people. A lot of people end up in real estate because of some strange situation that happened for them specifically. And oftentimes it is something random. And there's a lot of different paths to end up in real estate. So what happened with you not walking at graduation? What did your family think about that?
Yeah, I think it all comes from this like rebel spirit that some people have in them. Like, I know if I go with the flow, I'm not going to achieve what I want to achieve in life. And I first thought of this mentality when my dad, who's told, if you go to school, you get 3 different degrees, you increase your pay, you climb the corporate ladder, and you'll be good. Well, by the time he went to retire, he wasn't good. He didn't feel like he achieved his financial goals or his lifestyle goals. And so as soon as I heard that I was a high schooler at the time or heading into college, I just said, okay, I'm not doing it like everyone's going to do it. So I felt like I learned more ordering books from Amazon and reading them and starting with the foundational reads, Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, psychology books, business success books, personal finance. And so I just thought, as much as I enjoyed my college experience, I didn't enjoy the administration and the formal education that I received. So why recognize it? Why celebrate it? And that was different than anyone had really done in my family before. Everyone goes to graduation, then they go to graduate school. And I said, not going to walk. I'm going to buy a camper and drive out to Wyoming. So that threw a wrench into the family dynamic, but I had to do what I had to do and felt authentic.
What did you do with that camper?
So I drove down to Tennessee and bought it and brought it back to Madison, drove out west, lived in it for 3 months on the road, heading out there, saw a lot of great things after graduation, but then I ran out of money and I was putting gas on a credit card. And I finally got this job in Jackson, which I'd never been before. And they said, we'll only hire you if you have a place to live, because even in 2019, housing was really tight, both rentals and homes for sale. Couldn't afford to buy anything, could barely afford to rent something. So I just lied to him and I said, yeah, I have a place to live. But I didn't really lie, because I had a camper to live in, but I didn't have a home to live in Jackson. So I lived in Jackson for a month plus as I was working this job, and I would go shower at the gym or in the rec center. And that was pretty interesting. But eventually a friend of a friend introduced me to a person who had a home or a ski bum house for rent and a room in the basement for $675 a month. That's all I could afford. And ended up selling that camper because it was just sitting in the driveway and my roommates were getting mad.
That's so funny. And so then you got into managing Section 8. What was that like? Because I think a lot of people would assume that that's probably pretty difficult, not the most glamorous place to be in real estate.
Yes, this was after my fraternity house experience. So the property management company that kind of oversaw all of Greek Row recognized I was super helpful to them, and their job was easy for our house because I was doing most of it. And they hired me. I had to work for free and work on only commission on these leasing tasks, but I would put ads on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. And yeah, many of them were Section 8 voucher eligible. The other half was like student housing and really low income stuff. But I was enjoying the process of marketing, advertising, meeting with tenants, doing background checks and credit checks. And even though I'd show up to some of these Section 8 showings and even student showings, and people would be a little high or a little drunk or have a gun with them or something like that, it's all part of the deal. And I didn't get scared away. And so my boss at the property management company was like, I think you have a talent for this. Like if you or a passion, if you don't get scared by that kind of thing and you're actually invigorated by it, keep going. And he just gave some great advice that summer, and it was amazing experience.
At what point did you decide that you wanted to get your real estate license, and what made you decide that you wanted to pivot towards that direction?
I think it, again, kind of naturally happened. I was working at the luxury property management company after leaving the job at the bank in Jackson. And the rental organizers, rental agents that worked for the company who would find tenants for month-long bookings or nightly bookings, they were earning a commission off of those rentals because they had their license, and we had a responsible broker at this property management company. And so I just thought, how can I increase my earning potential? And very generously, the guy who owned the company offered to pay for my licensing, because it was like a retention thing. Like, if you will get you more educated, you bring more value to us, you can bring in leads and you make more. So that was really, really awesome of him to do. But
yeah, that's a huge win.
Once you get your license, you realize you're undervaluing your earning potential at a property management company.
Yep.
And one of the homeowners said, I think you're too smart for fixing my toilet and organizing renovations. Like, you should sell these homes instead, and introduced me to her broker, who I now am business partners with now.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that was how that connection happened. How would you compare the earning power of property management to being a realtor and having your license?
Orders of magnitude different if you do it right. I think it's a personality assessment as well as a risk profile assessment, because property management, I was receiving a salary and a bonus and small commissions from rentals. You're just dealing with smaller amounts of money. But one of the pieces of advice that the Section 8 property management owner gave me in college and right after college was, you should try to take very small percentages of very large amounts of money. And if you just follow that advice, in Jackson Hole, the sales of the homes are, millions, and the rental fees coming in are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. So, go for the big fish if you have the ambition to do so.
What does an entry-level house look like in Jackson Hole in terms of how much it costs? What's the pricing look like?
Yeah, just for perspective, our median sale price is over $5 million now. So it's pretty insane. And the entry level puts you at around $2.5 million for a 1980s, 1970s renovated home, starter home. It's pretty brutal.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I had no idea.
And for instance, I'm sitting in a valley in Idaho right now that's outside of town. So we have these bedroom communities. We have Teton Valley, Swan Valley, Star Valley, where a lot of people live and commute in. But if you're trying to be in Jackson Hole proper, town of Jackson, I think a single family, it's $2 million at minimum.
Who is actually buying houses in Jackson Hole for $2 million to $5 million?
It's a myriad of people, but I would say the main groups are second homeowners. They're looking for somewhere to have a home base, maybe declare a residency because they are traveling the world and they're escaping a high tax state like California or New York. We see a lot of kind of political and tax refugees coming out this way. And then, there are people who are successful entrepreneurs and maybe they have some boomer parent funding as well that helps them get into these entry-level homes. But as soon as you go above the median, it's all third, fourth, fifth home owners, investors, New York financier types who are using Jackson as a tax, but also a lifestyle play because you're buying into something much greater than just a home out here.
This is just a complete mindset shift for probably 99% of the people that are listening, because if you're buying a second home or a third or a fourth home for $2 million to $5 million, just imagine how much money you have to have. What kind of careers do these people have? Are they usually business owners? You said some people that are on Wall Street. What does the composition kind of look like of what these people are doing for how they earned this money?
Yeah, the two main groups, and this is an overgeneralization, but it's either really high level executives at tech companies or banks, and those are typically California, New York, coastal regions, or we have people who are in oil and gas, and again, like either own the company or are high level executives. And then you have those that have inherited their money, and they're kind of on the family office train where they have trustees and people sort of making wealth building decisions for them, and they're kind of along for the ride and have financial advisors, and they're buying and trading homes. So those are interesting folks as well. And then entrepreneurs that started from nothing and built something amazing, exited and decided they want to live a early retired life and really amplify their lifestyle in Wyoming. And those are some of the most fun people to work with because they know what it takes to get to this level.
Real estate is a team sport. You can grow so much faster if you're in the right room. The Launch REI Mastermind is a curated space for investors who want to move from hands-on execution to professional portfolio management. This is your personal board of directors. Inside, our conversations go beyond the tactics. We cover the decisions that actually change outcomes, structure, tax strategy, and capital allocation. If you want to build alongside a vetted peer network designed for the long term, apply for the Launch REI Mastermind at the link in the show notes. How do people afford to live there if they're just a normal person? Like someone works at a restaurant or they're a ski lift operator and they're making $20 an hour. They can't buy a house there, right? There's no way. So how do they even afford to live there?
Yeah, there's multiple angles to look at this, and it can be kind of a bleak picture, but also the stats they paint the most accurate picture. So starting out, Teton County, Wyoming, which is Jackson Hole, which includes multiple towns, including Jackson, Wilson, Teton Village. It is the wealthiest county in America by per capita income. And it has been for the last couple of years. It's just incredible how much wealth is here. And most of that per capita income comes from asset ownership, right? It's not a lot of active income. It's like passive investments and other real estate investments and things like that. But either way, it puts us at the top of the pyramid. Even though you look around and it seems like there's lots of land to be developed, a lot of these mansions are kind of, hidden in the trees and are very private. But for the workforce coming into town, when they see the prices, everyone gets sticker shock. The reality is 60% of local workers live in Jackson Hole. 30% live in Teton Valley, Idaho, which is a 35-minute drive to Victor. And then 10% live in Star Valley, Wyoming, or Lincoln County, which is 45 minutes to the south of Jackson. So our bedroom communities are really important. That's 40%, maybe plus now, of the workforce. But the other 60% can afford to live there, not easily. I mean, it's certainly a grind, but a lot of local businesses and employers have kind of vertically integrated their business. So they provide housing for their employees at a subsidized cost or at cost kind of situation. Or the government, the local housing authority, has created affordable housing, deed restricted units, and workforce housing for locals. So they have different requirements in the deed restriction, but it'll be income caps. It'll be you must work 30 hours a week for 9 months a year plus to qualify to own this. And there's both ownership and rental opportunities. But with that giant wealth gap, we have seen a divergence in free market housing and deed restricted housing. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but you kind of end up with this dynamic of the haves in free market and then the have-nots who are just trying to survive and get into the market and survive. So that causes some friction around here.
That is so fascinating. It's a tale of two cities in one place.
Certainly.
It's like a lot of other places too. I mean, any market, whether it's in the United States or abroad, it seems like you're ending up globally with the situation where, there's a very small number of people that have just extraordinary wealth. And then there's the people that live and work in these communities that are barely getting by. And imagine if you're making $16 an hour and you're seeing the average home price is $3 million if you want to be within 30 minutes. It's wild. Which leads me to kind of question the next part of this, which is what kind of real estate investing works in a market like Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where houses are $5 million?
Right. That's a great question. No matter the price point, at every price point in this valley, we have a tough time seeing cash flow with the minimum amount down. 25% down type of level is just not, you're going to be losing and hemorrhaging money every single month. We're not a cash flow market. You start to see cash flow on the properties that are even eligible to be rented or short-term rented at around 40 to 50% down. We have zoning regulations that restrict certain areas to short-term rentals. Those areas then kind of get the short-term rental pricing priced in because they have income or the ability to have income coming in. There are very sophisticated people around here as well who have advisors. Everyone has 3 brokers and, personal finance advisors. And they say, all right, here's the opportunity with this or that property to scrape the meat off the bone. So you look at a certain deal and you just go, all the value has been created in this property already, unless I tear it down or I can buy smart. That's what having a local broker can help you with is what's the real value and how do we get, a new development built on this. But 97% of the land in Teton County, Wyoming is publicly owned. So it can never be developed. And then you're left with that 3%. Half of that has already been developed. Another half of it is probably in conservation easement. So there's basically no vacant land to do new development. Creates some really, really strong supply side dynamics. And the lifestyle and how beautiful it is out here is like super, super strong buyer side dynamics. Demand side dynamics. So it's just always pushing prices up. And the best way to describe it is we're just an appreciation speculative market because of historical returns.
That is interesting. I mean, that's almost a little bit like New York City where there's just nowhere else to build and those prices are just going to keep going up. Even if you think they can't go up anymore, they just do because there's no supply and there's nowhere else to build. Yeah,
truly. And it's almost like an optical illusion because you drive through Jackson Hole and there are ranches that are vast expanses of cows and horses. And the problem is they're either in a national park already and you might not know what you're looking at, or they're under conservation easement, which gets people's tax liability, property taxes way down. They might have agricultural exemptions to get property taxes down, but they aren't zoned for or can never be developed into more housing.
So can people get an Airbnb in Jackson Hole if they want one?
As to purchase or to rent?
Yeah, to purchase one and then use it as a rental property.
Yes, they're certainly available. Like tomorrow, I'm going to go look at 2 with a client. But as I mentioned, you're not going to do well with 20, 25, 30% down. You're going to have to buy in cash, or you're going to have to put a lot down and then kind of be happy with a break even or a measly cash on cash return, and just kind of holistically think about it as an appreciation play as well as a lifestyle play. Like to have your friends out there, to have your family out there, you can develop amazing relationships. It's kind of a trophy asset as well, kind of a flex that you have a place in Jackson Hole. But
I'm sure
that's what people need to come to terms with if they're going to play in this market.
So we're not going to drop names or anything, but the people that you're showing properties to that are looking at these, are they looking at this as, hey, I will short-term rent it when I'm not staying there, but I have a place to go when I want and I own it, and maybe there's appreciation on top? Or how are they thinking about it?
Believe it or not, the guy tomorrow is the exception to the rule. He is saying he has such a good eye for value, and he's a flipper and wholesaler and kind of a bigger pockets type, investment community person who said, all right, there has to be some opportunities out there. And so it's been my job to go through hundreds and hundreds of listings and say, is there any meat on the bone here for the short-term rental? And his play is basically to buy it at a good price. We're going to try to really negotiate them down, put around $200,000 into the property, a short-term rental condo, and then flip it and maybe make an additional $200,000 or so. And has just chosen to work with me because he's bought a deal already. He's done that exact strategy and done well on a snowmobile lodge outside of town. And then I think with superior marketing from a brokerage standpoint, you can get a slight price premium on resale.
And you became a co-owner in a Berkshire Hathaway franchise when you were 27, right?
When I was 28 last year.
28.
Yep.
How do you get into that at that age? And how does that actually work? Do you have to buy into it? Was there already an existing franchise there, or did they create a new one and you were one of the partners that bought into it? Could you really break down how all that works? Because if you remember the Rich Dad Poor Dad ESBI quadrant, you're actually you skipped over employee completely, and you went from self-employed, basically being a realtor, to that business owner category. So that's really, really interesting. How does that actually work?
Yes, I think any national brokerage or brokerage in general has a different structure. So this is just what's going on with mine. And I've only ever worked for one brokerage, so this is all I know. But you have Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, which is a subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway Holdings. And then that company franchises its resources, its likeness, its name to local ownership entities. So ours is called Brokers of Jackson Hole, and we pay a certain fee to franchise with them. We have to follow their rules and use their correct brand identity and everything under the sun that they tell us to do. But I think it helps us with lead generation and bringing value and validation to our local business. A lot of people, and especially in a sophisticated market like Jackson, people recognize Berkshire Hathaway, Sotheby's, Keller Williams is big. So that's important. But in that local entity, I'm a minority owner in that now. And so every single year there's retained earnings, there's profits that need to get divvied up at the end of the calendar year. And I will benefit from the percentage that I own in shares, as well as the production that I do every single year. So you can't just be a passive owner and sit back and collect money at the end of every year. You can get some, but you won't get as much as if you produce as well. So I think it's set up nicely incentive wise. And I did have to buy in. There was an owner who is retiring, who is departing from the company. There were shares available. So I purchased those. I suppose it was a bit of just a financial replacement for his departure, but also a retention mechanism. Being a young agent, a high producing young agent, I would take meetings with other brokerages just to see what they're offering, even though I'm very loyal. And the older folks who are owners in my brokerage said, all right, we got to keep Sam around somehow, so let's offer him some shares.
What does it look like to run a brokerage in a luxury seasonal market?
Well, it can be feast or famine. It really can be. Our off seasons are slow, although they've been getting shorter. And in our really high seasons, which are primarily summer, that's when we see the most amount of tourism, because not only do we have skiing and everything in the winter, but the national parks open up in the summer. Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone National Park, these are world famous places to visit. And so we see just tons of traffic through town. Although we want to have fun and enjoy the lifestyle as well in Jackson, you kind of have to do your floor time. You have to be on the ball. You have to answer your phone all summer to benefit from that boom that happens every single year. You see a different type of clientele in the winter who are ski oriented people, I think much higher net worth people that are just sort of into the ski town culture, and they've been to 10 other mountain towns in the country, or maybe even in Europe and Japan. So they kind of get it and are more comfortable with the pricing. But yeah, being now an owner, there's an additional responsibility of recruitment of agents as well as mentorship of agents. And I do have a financial interest in doing that now. Whereas before I was kind of lone wolf, eat what you kill, and that worked. But I really enjoy the extra responsibility, and we have an office right downtown. So I'm always thinking of how to draw more people in, have events, host them, and go to live music on the town square after our parties, and just generate goodwill in the community and, benefit from all that good stuff.
Is there anything that you wish you knew what it meant to become a co-owner in this franchise that you didn't know when you bought in? It's
only been 4 months now, so I'm still kind of learning
so it's
the
still
ropes.
New.
But I would say it would be nice to know more about a relationship with Berkshire Hathaway and knowing what they give us for our money, right? And that's a continued dance between the local brokerage entity and your corporate franchise partner. Because if you don't feel like you're getting the value for the amount of commission payments you're giving them, it starts to feel like a big brother, little brother thing.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. I mean, I've been a realtor for 7 years, so I've seen quite a bit of the dynamic of agents and brokerages and a little bit into what ownership looks like. I don't have an ownership in any brokerages, but I do know people that have, and it does work for retention. Those are the people that stuck around at the Keller Williams office that I used to be at when I was with KW. I'm at Real Broker today, but I was at KW for 5 years, and the people that did have ownership in the local office, they never left. And as the market started to change, I saw people rotating and going to other brokerages because they didn't have as much skin in the game.
Mm-hmm. Truly. I mean, there's people that play hopscotch in Jackson, and they've been to 5 brokerages in 7 years. There's always a better deal out there, and brokerage world is certainly evolving, and players are consolidating, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Didn't you have a house hack at one point? And if you did, what did that look like?
Yes. My very first deal, and still my only investment property, was a house hack. I'm probably not the typical guest for this because other people probably have much bigger portfolios, but I kind of lowered my expectations with the pricing around here and leaning more into brokerage and sales, which is more fit for my personality. But yes, in late 2020, I bought a condo in Victor, Idaho, as I referenced before, which is one of our bedroom communities. And the reason I did that was because I asked around. I said, I just need to get into this market because I understand the historical returns and it's just always up and to the right. And I said, to my friends, what do you guys think about Victor? Like, nah, that's where like the bartenders live and the ski bums and they have to drive over the mountains. I said, that's perfect. It's like a Barbara Corcoran thing. She kind of said the same thing about Brooklyn and Dumbo. And she's just like, wherever the service industry people are, or the artists, like that's where you want to be. And so, I followed that instinct and advice from her. And I was like, okay, buy something, it's cheapest thing on the market, $250,000 condo. Amazing timing. COVID hit like a month later, and the property value went from 250 to 500 in like a year and a half, and then rents doubled. So I had lived in it with a roommate, and he was paying some of the mortgage. By the time the second roommate came around, was paying the mortgage plus some, and then I've moved out of it, and now the tenants pay double the original rents, and it cash flows a really healthy $600 a month true cash flow.
And you're using it as a midterm rental now?
Yeah, I signed like 6-month leases and year leases to the local workforce because I want to feel like I'm doing something for the community as well, although I could do short-term rentals and probably make a little bit more.
Are there any rental restrictions or anything like that you have to deal with?
Not in Victor. If I wanted to do a short-term rental, I'd have to get a license and notify the neighbors and go through the light restrictions on that. But other than those, as a long-term rental, it's very easy to landlord. And condos are such a amazing first deal because you're not worried about exterior maintenance and as much CapEx, and the HOA is managing a bunch for you. I actually have my annual HOA meeting for it tonight. But as long as there's a good board and solid reserves and it's being managed correctly, what a great way to get into the market at a very low risk.
There are so many people that are listening right now that are probably in expensive markets that are thinking that expensive markets are off limits. So people that are in those places, you're a perfect example. What would you say to those people that are listening?
Yeah, don't be afraid. Put your Zillow or your MLS setting to like what you can afford or below. And maybe only one deal will pop up a year that you can afford. But if you can get a primary homeowner loan, you'll get a great rate. You can make the payments more affordable, move into it, renovate it, do some sweat equity, sell it in 2 years, benefit from that tax-free appreciation, go buy something better. But it's really important you get started. And in my case, I couldn't even afford anything in Jackson. So I had to go outside of town 35 minutes. Don't be afraid to do that either, because you can work back into where you want to be eventually. And I think that's the case for a lot of real estate investors. I was listening to Graham Stephan, personal finance guru and real estate investor, and he was born in Santa Monica, had to go buy in a really terrible neighborhood a half hour away, but now he lives back in Santa Monica, and that's just part of life, guys. You can't have it all on day one.
Yeah, Santa Monica today is definitely one of the most desirable places in the U.S. to live. And the weather, the beach, I mean, all of it is just incredible. I haven't been there in a while, but I have been there. It's one of my favorite places that I've visited. I really enjoyed it when I was there. You're in this really interesting category where you're young and you have the opportunity to earn a lot. What's the biggest commission check that you've earned so far on one of your real estate transactions in Jackson Hole?
That's a great question. And I will say at this point, I have, like, now we have a team. Whenever my team members lay hands on the deal, they show it for me, they do transaction coordination, like I'm chipping away at the commission check. So there's many people to pay now, which I absolutely love because it buys back my time and it's a great team dynamic, and we take vacations and things. But yeah, the biggest solo commission check I've ever earned was $97,000. And that was a $4.85 million deal.
What did you do with a $97,000 check?
It's actually still in my checking account. This is from last month.
Oh my God, it's in your checking account. Okay. This is such a good opportunity to talk about like the order of operations with money. You can obviously do whatever you want, and there's so many different things that you could do with it. But have you started putting away money in some of your retirement accounts yet? Whether it's like a solo 401k, a SEP IRA, or a Roth IRA, which you may have to do a backdoor Roth IRA because of your income it's going to end up being over the limit.
Yeah, I do. I max out my Roth IRA every single year. I have in years past, and I guess I'm getting into that high income territory now, which is I'm having to rely on my CPA for advice. But yeah, Roth IRA, individual brokerage accounts, an HSA, and actually a 529. I don't even have children. But I figure put money in the market is just another way to fund something. It's going to have long-term earning potential, and then my kids will have a college fund. So you definitely have options. And because I also work as an agent and I've had to go through this, there's kind of an order of things that you could put your money in. And it depends on the person. And this is not financial advice, but I have had to live this. So it's worked out pretty well for me. Paying off debt, of course, especially if it has a high interest rate. If you've got to put away a little bit money towards a car or something like that, if you're saving for any large expenses like that, putting money into your Roth IRA and maxing that out, tax-free growth, especially for someone your age, for the next 35 years is going to be worth so much more. But if you're over that income limit, and you can Google what it is because it changes every year, it might be around 170K or something like that. But you could contribute the maximum for this year, which is $7,500, into a traditional IRA. Don't invest it, wait like a week or so, and then press that convert button so it converts into your Roth IRA. Then once it's in there, you can invest it in the stock market. And, you can do that for the next 30 years. You could end up with $2 million in your Roth IRA. And that's just step one. Have you heard I saw a statistic recently. It was like there's 420 or 28 Roth IRAs in America with over $1 billion in them. I'm like, what? And
I didn't know that.
It's under the old rules. You could buy like private stock or private market stuff. And Peter Thiel is one of those examples. He bought like $500,000 worth of private Facebook shares inside of a Roth. And now, of course, it's worth billions, but yeah, it's a super powerful tax and retirement planning tool. But I always go back to I just cover the bases with those traditional methods. But at the end of the day, I really only know real estate through and through. And so this chunk that's sitting in my bank account right now is for my next deal, which I think will be a Jackson condo or townhome.
This episode is brought to you by Easy Street Capital, the lender built by investors for investors. Whether you're flipping, building a rental portfolio, or executing a ground-up construction project, Easy Street has 3 nationwide loan programs designed to close fast with no surprises. We're talking 24-hour closings, upfront terms, and in-house servicing from start to finish. If you're ready to fund your next deal, go to easystreetcap.com/launch-REI to get started, or you can grab the link in the show notes. Got it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know real estate, you know that market, so it could definitely be a good bet. You do have really interesting options because you could buy another property like that there, or after contributing to your Roth IRA, you do have the next level option, which is what I ended up opening up in 2021, which is a solo 401k. So if you work as a real estate agent and you have your LLC that you're paying yourself through and you're taxed as an S corp, I pay myself a salary through that. And then you can put away, depending on how much you pay yourself of that salary, up to $72,000 a year pre-tax or Roth. I actually was able to put away $200,000 into my solo 401k over the course of 4 or 5 years because the contribution limits are so high.
That's amazing. And I just I'm working on the election to be an S corp this year because of my income has gone up so much. But in years past, it was just like a pass-through entity and didn't matter that much. But thank you for bringing this up because I'll relay this to my CPA and see what we can do to maximize retirement savings.
I mean, because what I look at is the difference in your income tax between that 24% level and then I think the next one is 32%. It goes up to, is it 24 and then 32? I don't have it in front of me, but there's a decent jump that happens. And I try and, if I can, keep my income below that 32% threshold because it's such a big jump. The previous one from 24, I think, is 22, and it's like, whatever, it's tiny. But, if you're able to shelter a huge chunk of your income from those taxes or put in a lot of Roth contributions when you're so young, the compounding is going to be insane. The way that I'm looking at it is if you can put away, let's pretend that you're paying yourself a salary of $40,000 a year. The rest is classified as distributions. And then you can do the employee maximum. You can also do the employer portion. That's how you're able to do so much. And if you pay yourself more than 40, you can contribute. I was putting away, I think, 32, 33, 34,000 a year to my solo 401k, whereas most people are only able to do a maximum of 24. But you can just put so much money away into these things. And so it could go Roth IRA and then it could go solo 401k. You could be looking at a situation where you might be putting away $40,000 to $50,000 a year into tax advantaged accounts. However, you can't touch that solo 401k with the exception of sometimes you actually can invest your solo 401k into syndications and passively invest in those real estate deals. And then those distributions or those exits can come back and be put back into your solo 401k. So that actually can be really interesting. And you're allowed to have a certain percentage of your solo 401k, depending on the provider, invested in syndications. So that actually can be quite interesting. Now, after your Roth IRA and solo 401k, that other category is real estate. And I look at it as kind of 2 buckets. You could either be investing passively in syndications like what I've been doing. I have a little slice of a couple of multifamily deals that I've invested in because it's totally passive. I get returns every quarter. I don't have to do anything. I'm very active with running Launch REI, doing the podcast, and also being a realtor that there's no way that I could do any active real estate investing. I would just be way too busy. So I'm investing passively in real estate, but you may be in a situation where you could do it actively on that smaller scale-ish where you could do a condo, you could find a townhome, you could do something like that. And because you have that property management background, you're well prepared. You could do that. So you could go either way. If you want to be more on the stock side, you could put some of it into a solo 401k or just a little. You could do 10, 12, 15K a year there. Do the Roth IRA. Maybe you have 20 invested in the stock market and then you go to the other side and you say, I'm going to do one real estate deal, maybe two per year. Maybe I'm going to do one single family and one syndication, or two syndications, or just one townhome. You can really look at these different opportunities and decide where you're going to get the highest return, the most leverage, what's the hassle factor of doing it, how does it play into overall strategy of how you want your portfolio to look, and where you're going to have to put your time and make those decisions of where you want to allocate your capital. You're in such a good spot.
Yeah, thank you. And it does start with being debt free or being bad debt free, right? So if you're an agent or an investor or whatever, just pay off the bad debt right away, and then, keep as much of the good debt as possible and get more of it. But yeah, it's different for everyone. And I like that you pointed out syndications through your Roth or through those passive vehicles, because people assume that you can only get cash flow from real estate or from a business or something, but you can do it through syndications and through a much more passive way. It doesn't all have to be appreciation in your stock portfolio.
And you really are in such an interesting position too, because if your income is above 200K taxable income, single, not married, for 2 years in a row, then you get that badge of being an accredited investor, which unlocks the ability for you to invest in syndications. You really can't do it for the most part without that. If you're married, that joint income is 300K instead of 200. And these income thresholds have not shifted since, I believe, 1981. Or maybe 1983. I know it's in the 1980s. It hasn't moved with inflation. So more and more people have been able to qualify for being an accredited investor over the last 30 years. And it's getting to a point where it's like 10, 20% of American households, whereas it used to be 2%.
Yeah. And I find that just the philosophy behind that is kind of interesting, because you have to be an accredited investor to participate in some of these funds or syndications. But then anyone can sign up for a Kalshi or Polymarket account and go gamble their life savings away.
Oh my God, that's such a good point.
It's to protect people from certain high risk investments, but I think they should get rid of it. But I'm with you. It's the rules now, and luckily I am there, so quite qualify.
That's actually a really good point, because if people are just gambling their money away and there's no rules around it, you have a 50-50 chance of just losing your money. With syndications, the odds are not like that at all. I mean, the odds of success are pretty high. It depends on the operator, who you pick, the market conditions and all of that, but your money can be locked up for a long time. And I think the thinking behind it is such a high percentage of someone's net worth might be locked up in a very illiquid investment, because there's no secondary market for syndications. You can't just pull your money out of one at all. It might be locked up for 7 to 10 years and there's nothing that you can do about it. So if your income is 100K a year and maybe you saved aggressively for 5 to 7 years, you saved up 50K, you put it into a syndication, that might be 70% of your net worth, and you cannot pull it out or tap into it no matter what. And that can be really risky for people. So I think that's why they did it.
That makes sense. I didn't think about that angle. Definitely. That's awesome.
But you have really good opportunities, though. I mean, if we look at this, if you're making, I have no idea how much, but if you make 200, 300 grand a year, maybe you invest in 2 syndications a year. If each one of them gives you a 10% cash on cash return, then maybe you put in 100K, you're going to be getting back 10K a year on your 100K investment every year for the next decade. And for some of these syndications, they'll look to do a refinance maybe 3 or 4 years in. Maybe you'll get 40, 50, 60, 70% of your capital back. You're still getting the cash flow ongoing until that syndication exits, maybe at year 10, but then you can recycle that money and put it in another deal. So now your money's working in 2 places at once.
Yeah, you're like 5 steps ahead of me on this stuff.
It's okay. We have people
That's awesome.
all over this spectrum of personal finance and investing that come on this podcast and that are listening to this podcast. And, I'm going to be one of the least successful people that's on this podcast. I purposely am interviewing people who are just amazing, who are doing different things than me. And with some of these commission checks, you're out earning me or going to out earn me many years, maybe even most years that you're doing this, because you're in this high price market where you're just getting these larger commission checks on these deals. I mean, you're in such a good spot, and you really fall into this category where you're probably going to be in the top 2 or 3% of income earners for your age bracket.
It is fun to look at, and it does ground you, but also motivate you in some ways is, yeah, your age bracket on a national level. And it's not really like cost of living adjusted because it is really expensive to live here too. But it is fun to check in on that. And I should say to anyone looking in expensive markets as well, whether you're an investor or service provider, if you are reliable and trustworthy and you show up every day and do what you're going to say, there's not that much competition. You can really quickly become like a big fish in a small pond versus if you're in a big metro market, you're inevitably going to be like a little fish in a big pond unless you're really extraordinary. And some people are, and more power to them. But I just never, with that rebel mentality, thought to myself, like, I'm going to outcompete someone that's willing to do all-nighters 3 nights a week. And I value my health and my lifestyle and things like that. And I think you can find that not just in a mountain town luxury market, but just in a smaller market. So be real about your personality and go where you're treated the best. And I've never found anywhere else in all of my travel and life, nowhere else that's treated me better than Jackson Hole. So that's why I'm going to stick around.
How do you spend your time? What does your schedule look like between being a co-owner in a brokerage, being an agent, and also just living in such a cool place where you could go skiing or snowboarding all the time? I'm really curious how you're spending your time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm going skiing all Friday. So I'm taking, personal day with friends who are visiting, and there is a constant flow of friends and also new people who I meet through social media who are visiting, interested in real estate or just catching up about the lifestyle out here, interested in the place. I would say it's about 3 days a week in the office, 2 days of work from home, and then the other 2 days are complete fun. I don't look at my phone all day long. And those aren't necessarily weekends or weekdays. It's just always a mix because of the nature of brokerage and my clients being in town, out of town, having needs or not, or how many deals we have going. That day, free day, might be a Monday or Tuesday. And so I'm skiing on the mountain with no lift lines, or I'm in the national park eating a turkey sandwich, looking at Old Faithful on a Wednesday.
What's your favorite national park?
I'm going to go with the classic Yellowstone National Park. It is in my backyard, but there's a reason I live so close to it, and the history behind it being the first national park and Teddy Roosevelt's involvement in that. We have a restaurant next to our office called Roosevelt's, and it's all TR themed. And he just has such an extraordinary life and history of conservation efforts. And without Yellowstone, we wouldn't have Grand Teton, in my opinion, because John D. Rockefeller Jr. spent time in Yellowstone and wanted to create his own national park and thought that the Tetons were so extraordinary that he had to preserve it. He secretly bought all of the ranches around it with his real estate agents, and they put together what we have just to our north today. So yeah, it starts from the OG Yellowstone.
You're going to be our national park historian for the Launch REI community.
I can do that. And man, national parks are an amazing fundamental cornerstone to a short-term rental market, or any market for that matter, because of tourism, because of federal dollars pouring into that resource so close to something. Totally go that direction if you're interested in short-term rentals or just lifestyle for yourself.
So I haven't yet been to any of the national parks out west, and it's on my list to do in the very near future because I feel like I've been missing out and I need to go do it. I have to.
It's, truly. A lot of them don't even have cell service in there. So leave your phone at home, go on a road trip, rent a fun car on Turo or something, or you come to Jackson, we have a courtesy car for our clients. And so bring your gal, bring your family, anyone you want, and just go enjoy it. And it grounds you. And it's called a park for a reason, but it's all natural. Like, humans haven't touched that place except for the trails and the roads, but the animals are just so majestic. And a little diner here in Idaho, and there's all these bison, bear, and elk on the wall. It's pretty great.
I'm curious, what's the coolest house that you've ever sold? Do you have a favorite yet?
I'll tell you, really, this is kind of like house hack as well. So one of my second biggest deal ever was in the very start of my career in 21. And it was a online social media lead. They contacted me. We looked at 5 houses. They found one that they loved. Huge, old log cabin. It's like 4,000, 5,000 square foot logs, bigger than your head. And they have a trophy room in there. And it is every animal you could ever hunt, like in the whole world. It's like better than a Cabela's or Gander Mountain. It's amazing. So these people closed on the property. There was a guest house down below that had a caretaker in it living there. And these are sort of common setups because a lot of people here aren't here all year and they need someone to plow the driveway and get the mail and mow the lawn, stuff like that. That caretaker left because he was getting paid in addition to free housing. They called me, do you know anyone that would be interested in this position? Free housing, you just have to get the mail and plow the driveway. It's no big deal. I said, yeah, I'll call you back. And 5 minutes later, picked up the phone, called him back and said, I'll do it. I'll move out of my house hack in Idaho and come over and live in your guest house. So I currently still live in my own client's home, completely rent free, no utilities, nothing like that. Helps me bank a ton of money every single month because it's probably worth $2,000 plus per month. It's a little 1-bedroom and it's on the river. And I get to look at this extraordinary landscape, totally free. And that's the coolest deal I've ever done for multiple reasons.
That is the most incredible house hack that I've ever heard of. 10 out of 10.
And you know what's better than a house hack is completely free housing, right? Like I even thought to myself, I need to buy something and start building equity and live in it myself and all this stuff. And maybe that's not the reality for everyone. Maybe you have a really good setup at your parents' house or your client's house or someone else who's willing to trade a little bit of your time for the caretaking responsibilities for free housing. And that's, I think, the best of all worlds.
100%. That's awesome. Sam, there's so many cool things that you've shared with us today. Your story is so unique, and we will definitely share your social media in the show notes because I'm sure people are going to want to see your Instagram because it is absolutely worth seeing. It's so cool. And yeah, you have such a unique and interesting life, and it really looks beautiful out there. So I'm excited to go see it sometime. And we really appreciate your time here today. So how can people get in touch with you if you want to maybe share your Instagram or your preferred way for people to reach you?
Yeah, my real preferred way would be for you, Vince, to come to Jackson Hole and spend a weekend with me. And anyone else for that matter, please reach out if you're going to be in the Jackson Hole area, or even if not, if you're just curious or want to connect. Sam H Real Estate on Instagram, TikTok. Those are my two favorite short form sites. I just share a lot on there. You can also find me at harlanbrothersrealestate.com. That's our team within Berkshire Hathaway and Jackson. And, or my cell number. You'll find it in my Instagram bio. Shoot me a text or call. No problem at all. I love talking to people. So thanks for the opportunity to have me on.
Sam, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good one, Vince.
If today's episode was useful, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. We drop 2 episodes every week. And if you want to go deeper, join thousands of investors getting our free weekly newsletter at newsletter.launchREI.co or check the link in the show notes. See you next time.